Okay, I'm Mike Gridley, editor of The Messenger, and we're here at Mohegan Manor today to talk to 5 of the Coates brothers and talk about some of their memories about World War II and their service, and some of the things that they remember. And just quickly, I'd like everybody to just introduce themselves so we get their name.
John Coates.
Donald Coates.
Fred Coates.
Bob Coates.
Bill Coates.
Okay. And I guess maybe we'll just start off. Maybe each one of you can tell us where you served or what you did during the war, and just quickly how you got into it, and then maybe we'll have everybody talk about what they remember, what was memorable. John, you want to start off?
My memory of the war.
What unit what you served in? And
I was with the 159th Infantry. I served in Europe. We landed on Normandy beach on the latter part of September. We still had to land on the beach. My most memorable thing of my whole career in the Army was going up Omaha Beach and seeing all those crosses of the dead soldiers, Marines, and sailors there. I'll probably never forget that.
And this was in September that year?
It was late September, yes.
So coming up on 50 years this September.
Yes, it will be.
Now, how did you get into the service?
I was drafted.
When did that happen?
September of 43. I turned 18 on June 28th, and September 3rd I was in the service. They drafted quick.
Didn't waste any time.
No, they didn't. There were a lot of other fellows there too.
Okay. Don, you're... Sir?
I was in the Marine Corps during World War II and served in the Pacific. At the conclusion of the war, we were preparing on Saipan for the landings on Japan itself, but of course the atom bomb took care of that. But we did move into Japan and occupy the country at the end of World War II. I was recalled in the service and spent a year in Korea. Memorable experiences? Oh, a lot. Probably more in Korea than in World War II. But,
how long did you spend in Japan?
Japan, about a year. About a year in Japan.
What was it like during that time?
Well, of course, the bombings had taken care of most of the cities, and so they were in bad shape. The roads were all torn apart, bridges were torn apart. Very difficult to get around, but I think the Americans did a great deal for the Japanese during that period of time. However, I think it shows today that the Americans did a pretty good job.
What kind of things were you doing when you were stationed there?
Well, we supervised destroying all their airplanes and tanks, and we took all the weapons. We had buildings just filled with swords and guns and all kinds of arms. And we did supervise the first election that the women could take part in. Up till that time. Of course, MacArthur was the big wheel there at that time. And,
so basically getting a government going again there.
Started, yeah.
How about Fred, is it?
Fred manned the home front.
And you were working in the
Defense plants, yes,
okay.
and I was exempt.
Okay.
And because of my age and my 2 children, and that I have.
How old were you at that time?
Oh, I was born in 33.
Okay.
And I was an air raid warden till I got bit by a dog. Then I gave that job up. That's all about my experience in the war.
So did you go up in the watchtower that they had here? Or?
No, I just went around and seen everybody had their lights out,
Oh, okay.
except me. I had the flashlight.
Do you remember, what do you remember about Baldwinsville during the war? I mean, what were things like here?
There was more women than men.
And so most of the men were probably working in the defense
Yes,
business.
and Morris's and local places around here, air-cooled motors, and a lot of the factories were making arms in the city.
What were you working? You were a tool and die maker?
Yes.
So what kind of stuff were you making during?
Well, we were making airplane engines at air-cooled motors, plus we made a nose cap for naval shells. They were a timing device that exploded after a certain amount of time after they hit. They had a timing device that didn't explode right away shortly after they hit. We were making those too in air-cooled motors.
Was this at Morris here, or was this in the city, or?
No, it's in Liverpool.
Okay.
Air-cooled motors is in Liverpool.
Okay.
They're a throwback from the Franklin engine. It was an air-cooled
yeah.
engine.
All right. That was a car that they made. Right
Yes,
there.
that's right. It was the
Okay.
same engine, air-cooled engine. They were mostly for drones.
Okay. You were in the service also?
I enlisted in the Navy in May of 1942. I ended up in Newport, Rhode Island. That was my boot camp. From there, I was sent to a naval aviation school in Jacksonville, Florida. I was there 6 months. And then I went to another school up in Norfolk. I was there another 3 or 4 months. And I ended up Pratt & Whitney factory, too. They sent me up there. And then I was back. Then I went on the flight line down at Pensacola. I was down there flying PBYs out of there. Then we back to Norfolk, and then my outfit moved to San Diego, and I was there for quite a while, training. And then my outfit broke up. Most of them went in Ferrara. But for some reason, they went, every other man in my outfit, and I was left in San Diego. So I ended up in Pearl Harbor. And I got to Pearl Harbor, I saw the ships and everything upside down, but I finished my career there. So it's like working on engines and playing ball. That's about my time in the Navy.
How long were you in altogether?
Almost 4 years. I was discharged over at Sampson.
And what planes were you working on?
F6Fs and the F4Us. That was the biggest engine they made at that time. It was an R2800, and we used to make that engine for those planes. And I don't know how many went to the South Pacific, because we set up a factory at Pearl Harbor, and each man did a little part on it. I ended up in overhauls, running engines that didn't pass down to test stands, because they got to take them out a certain amount of oil, and then things that they didn't test out was our job to find out and get them back down to test plant again. So that's about all I can tell you about my service in the Navy.
Did you go on to work in a similar field, or?
No, I could have. We had, they came to us and asked us, because we had to take a test there. They gave us a certificate that we could go on with that engine.
Did you work on any of the same engines that your brother was working on?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
This was the biggest engine. Then later on, we were getting tooled up for that 3300. That's the one that was going to the B-29s.
Okay.
So we had to go over to different bases and get the tools and bring them back, because we were getting ready to run that through the test stands. See, as soon as the engine came in the door, it was torn down. When they got down the other end, there was nothing there. And the cylinders and the different parts went to different parts, and then they started the final assembly, and it was built.
What do you remember about Pearl Harbor when you showed up there?
Oh, it was a mess, as I thought. All the ships were upside down.
What time of the year was this when you got there? Was it shortly after?
Probably in July, I think it was. When we
Okay.
got there.
It's about 6 months after the...
Oh, quite a while after that,
Yeah.
but it was still a mess.
Still-
And those ships
still-
were upside down. They were working on the battleships and then getting them going. In fact, they found guys that had lived in there a certain length of time. They had enough oxygen. When they were on oxygen, they died. And they could hear them pounding down in there, trying to get them, but they couldn't get to them.
How long were they
Well,
trapped?
probably maybe 10 days or something like that, and they're longer. Some of them lived with enough oxygen down in there.
Wow. Did you ever get to talk to anybody that was there during the invasion?
Oh, there was several from Baldwinsville that were there, and the Japanese bomb. But I could never understand why they ever got into Pearl Harbor, because before that they were setting barbed wire up along the beaches, and they had... our submarines must have known where their fleet was. I think this was a setup job by Roosevelt.
Yeah.
to get us in, because this country wasn't ready for war yet. See, we were just gearing up for it. So I'll never believe that the Japanese, that was a surprise attack. I think they let them come in.
Yeah.
And then we had all our battleships there. Lucky we didn't lose some of our carriers.
How many ships were, do you remember, like, numbers when you got there that were
Oh, I
overturned?
can't remember that. I remember coming out, the Missouri was there, and I came out on the Hornet, and I'm trying to think of the other aircraft carrier went out ahead of us, and the Saratoga was loading up with soldiers. You could look up in the hills, and 5 days later when we got to Alameda, there was the Saratoga unloaded. So he must have steamed by us someplace back to the United States.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
I'm
you're-
Bill. I enlisted in the Coast Guard. I spent most of my time on destroyer escort, escorting ships across the Atlantic and into the Mediterranean. I think probably my most memorable occasion was ship being torpedoed, my ship. We didn't sink, but we lost quite a few men. And they towed us back and repaired the ship, and I went back out again, but I was taken off and put on a different ship.
What ship was that?
The USS Menzies.
This was in the Mediterranean?
Yes, that's where we were torpedoed. And,
What, did you know how you got torpedoed?
we were chasing one sub with our sound gear and another laden weight. When we went by, they sunk, well, they shot the torpedoes and got us in the rear and disabled us. We had to be towed. In fact, the ship was towed back to the New York Naval Yards to be repaired.
How big of a ship was it?
Well, it was just a hair smaller than a destroyer. We had 3-inch guns, torpedo tubes, 40 millimeter and 20 millimeter guns. We had a photographer aboard, and we had 6 ships in our flotilla, and he took all these pictures, and I have quite a conglomeration of pictures. In fact, one of them was rated one of the 10 best during the war.
Wow.
So it's just this photographer happened to be there.
Yeah.
That made this ship kind of...
Like a naval photographer?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my story.
What was your, what were you doing on the
I was a
ship?
fire controlman. I took care of, we had a gun director that directed the 40 millimeter to fire at planes, and the 3-inch we had a computer. I was taken off the small gun director and put up on a computer on the flying bridge, luckily.
And that's the same thing you did when you were moved on to another?
Yes.
How long were you in the...
3 years.
3 years.
And they called it the dry land sailors, but...
Yeah. You were pretty much out at sea
Out
that
at sea
whole
most
time.
of the time, a lot of the time.
What were some of the places you saw?
Algeria, Tunis, any place along the Mediterranean. Bermuda. We'd stop at Bermuda at times. A lot of time in the North Atlantic. And I was a seasick cookie too. Boy, that North Atlantic. I must have thrown up for 30 straight days. But I finally got over it.
Had you ever been on a boat before you...
Nothing like that.
Yeah. And you were out for quite a few days at a time.
We used to, it would take us a long time, I mean, we would be circling the convoy. The 6 ships, the 6 DE would circle the convoy. And our sound gear would be looking for subs.
Were there any major battles or
Well, we were attacked by planes in the Mediterranean, and they sank a naval destroyer, and they blew up a troop ship. We got quite a few survivors off that. In fact, off this destroyer was a man named Morgenthau, and he's a big shot in New York City right now. We picked him up as a survivor on our ship. So we had some action, enough to satisfy me.
Yeah. What was the Coast Guard's role in the whole thing?
A lot of it was destroyer escort duty, landing craft. Most of the Marines that landed, the small craft were taken in by Coast Guard, and some of them, in fact, the fellow I enlisted with in this town, he was guarding the beach in Florida, Bob. He talked me into going into the Coast Guard. So he ended up a pretty good deal, but some of us didn't.
Some of them you had a lot of service. Okay. I guess maybe I can ask this question to any or all of you, but just since a whole the whole bunch of you were working in the, 4 of you were in the service and all of you were involved in it. What was you had family back here, parents or grandparents even, I don't know.
Well, my parents were here.
There was obviously a time when you were all overseas, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Now, did you have much idea what one another was doing at any given time?
I don't think
Right.
any.
I missed John once. He came through Pearl Harbor, and they happened to get another fellow with the same name, one Bob Cooks. And he looked me up, and they told me I had left, but he got the wrong one.
That's the closest one.
Yeah,
That's a close-
never crossed paths.
I went to see him one time in Norfolk. I didn't get to see you. I think I saw Oz. You were loading ships or something, loading someplace, and I didn't get a chance to see you.
Did you get to write home or hear from home very often, or?
Oh, yeah. My wife was very good. I got married while I was in service.
Only 2 of us could write.
I was one of them. My wife was the other one. She used to write letters. My wife used to write the letters. I know that she did that.
Now, what did
There was a coach here at Baldwinsville, Leslie Getman, used to write an article in the newspaper to all the boys
Right.
overseas. He used to,
Did you ever remember seeing a messenger when you were overseas, or something like that ever got to you? Just letters?
Stars and Stripes.
Yeah,
That's right. Stars and Stripes.
yeah.
Bill Roy.
So, when it was all over, did you all get out at around the same time, or was there just,
I think pretty close to this
Yeah.
time. I couldn't wait to get out. I never want to go back, you know. Some of these guys want to be a hero, not me.
yeah,
I remember hearing from Jack that he was on a ship, he was getting ready to go through the Suez Canal, and he wrote me a letter. He said, Jesus, can't you win that war in the Pacific? God damn it, I got to go over there. And next thing I knew, I got home, and he beat me home.
Well, what happened is we were on our way to the Philippines. We were preparing to invade Japan. And when we left Marseille, France, he had dropped the first bomb in Japan. And out we went. We were on our way. We were going through the Panama Canal. And we got out 3 or 4 days, and they dropped the other one. And he says, you guys are going to Norfolk. Man, was I happy.
and that was pretty much the end of it for most.
Yes. Well, they had to discharge us.
Yeah.
As
far as the
we
fight.
had to have so many points. And being single and not being overseas that long, I didn't have enough points, so they sent us up into Oregon for more training. After a while, they kept lowering the point system, so I finally got out. They wouldn't discharge me there. They had to send me back to Fort Dix in New Jersey, which...
Did any of you go on to serve again in Korea, or?
Not me.
Yeah,
Not by choice.
fortunate or unfortunate, yes,
You were called up again?
teaching school, and all of a sudden they called up this 10th Tank Battalion, which was a reserve unit, and I happened to be in it. And we ended up being assigned to California. Drove to California, and I wasn't there very long, and was sent to Korea, which is a nice place to be from.
How long were you over there?
I was there a year. Yep.
And do you remember anything memorable about being over there?
Yeah, it was the day I got on a plane to come home. That was the most memorable part of it. Yes, it was a United Nations operation. But there wasn't anything pleasant about it.
Yeah. a lot different from your experience in World War II, or?
Not really. The Koreans, of course, we thought the war was going to be over. MacArthur ordered the big push to the Yalu, and it looked like that was going to be the end, but nobody told the Japanese or the Chinese that, and of course they came across hordes and drove us back to South Korea, and we started all over again, and we got up to the 38th parallel, and that's when they called the truce, and still there. And that's 1950, that's 44 years ago.
What do you think about things going on here today?
Hey, North Koreans are tough. They, you see all of the pictures, and all I'm reminded of is Russia and Germany at one time. It's a dictatorship, and military is big as far as they're concerned. The atomic situation is the one that's proving to be the sticky part. I don't know how far they can be trusted.
So is there any other memorable things that anybody else has thought of, or did y'all have, you said you were married, was anybody else married?
I came home on what they call survivors leave. She was had got married. In fact, I tell my wife, I had battle fatigue. That's the only reason I married her. She still gets a kick out of it, I guess. In fact, we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary on D-Day. Our ship was scheduled to be in on it, but we couldn't make it.
And the rest of you got married after the fact.
I can go on a sick leave. I had my tonsils out. They sent me home because I lost a lot of weight, so I think my wife got me in a bad time.
Did you all settle down in this area, or have you?
Yeah.
Yes. And I didn't get the ages though. Now, what's the order it goes in?
He's still right here.
Fred.
I'm 85.
I'm next. I'll be 76 to 12th of this month.
Okay.
I'm next. I'm 73.
Okay.
I'm next, 71.
I'm last, 69.
Okay.
I gave up.
You didn't run out of gas.
That's it. Can't do any better than that, I'm giving up.
Were there any sisters?
Yeah, two sisters.
Okay.
Two sisters and one older brother.
Yeah, another brother.
Okay.
They
The
used to
oldest
see each
brother.
And a sister, and a sister and a brother today.
Okay. Bob?
That it?
That's about all questions that I can think of. Thanks for talking to us today, and I guess this will be part of our continuing series on local memories of World War II that we've been compiling, and we'll see you next time.